Welcome to the GTM Snacks podcast. Today, we're joined by Devin Reed, founder of The Reader and host of Read Between the Lines. Fresh from Adobe's Community Express Summit in San Francisco, where he was handpicked as one of just 20 creators, Devin's going to show and share his unique approach to pipeline generation here. But most importantly, we're going to get into how Devin's going to get a shoe deal with Adidas for that Reader Slime Green. So Devin, welcome to the show, and let's get into it.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. Been excited to do the GTM snack with you. It's a good show.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, the goal is really just finding that one snack that we can share with the audience, who I've found the audience here to be B2B SaaS founders trying to figure out their pipeline generation strategy, which you asked me before, like, you were a really good marketer for a sales guy. And my response to you was, you're a really good sales guy for a marketer. So
I remember
like,
that.
What's the difference now, right? Like, what is the difference and what actually matters in today's world to generate pipeline? Why don't we start there?
Yeah, it's a good point. Well, I think the difference, this is my perspective. I'm curious what yours is. Like, we could go deep into like the skills that like a great salesperson has and the skills that a great marketer has. And there's definitely like a spectrum, right? Like of where they're going to plot, where they're going to fall. Yeah. For me, I always thought sales was like really good, like one-on-one combat. And I don't mean that to be aggressive, but like one-on-one, right? Like, can you sell in a one-on-one scenario, much like us, or one to few? And to me, marketing is just sales at scale, where instead of, it's kind of like a one-way street where I'm going to write something, I'm going to create something, put it out there, and I don't get immediate feedback like you get on a call, right? So I always thought it was cool. I always thought marketing was cool because the great marketers can create pipeline by putting something out into the internet, basically. And I know there's other ways, like, events, in-person events and billboards and all that kind of stuff. But I just think that's such a cool skill to like go on LinkedIn and post something or send an email or make a billboard, and like people see it, read it, resonate with it. And then they're like, cool, I want to learn more. I want to buy that. I think that's a really cool, like, superpower.
So what is physical shipments? This is something I've been thinking about a lot, with the fact that like coming up with a custom thing that's going to work really well for that person that you want to get their attention of. That's a one-to-one thing. But then there's also the Sendoso account where you can send the piece of swag, and that's marketing, quote unquote. But to me, for sales has always been that, how do you stand out from the noise and do that really high quality thing to get someone's attention at one of those key accounts?
Yeah.
But is that marketing to you, or is that?
Yeah, I would
sales?
Put that under marketing.
Okay.
I guess it breaks the one-to-many kind of spiel I gave, but I would put it under marketing. If you were like, but if a salesperson is doing it, would that be sales? I'd say probably. Maybe it's both. Maybe it honestly could be both. And the reason why, when you were talking about it, Andrew, I was thinking, if I didn't know someone and it was like the first touch, and I'm like, to your point, I'm trying to get on your radar, right? Like a busy CXO at big company. Sending a personalized gift is like almost a guaranteed way that you're at least going to get a couple seconds of their attention, hopefully a couple minutes, right? And then hopefully you've done a good enough job, sent a meaningful note that they're like, cool, I'll come talk to you, right? So a little reciprocity gets triggered. But
and that's how we got to this episode, and I'm gonna cut Sadiq, cut in the video here.
Yeah. Do you have I
don't have it yet, but
I'll send
it
to you.
it.
Okay.
Yeah. But like, this is the example of like the one. Granted, I knew you prior to sending this, but I've been helping sales development teams with, all right, what is the unique thing that we can physically ship? And I was talking to Brian Lamana about this at Gong, and it's well received when it's from a salesperson to a sales leader. It gets a little squirrely when you're into territory of like security and privacy, but the idea of, oh, you sent that? That's uniquely me. That's personal. And so I think the thing that I'd love to lead into here is content, right? Like, how do we go from, that's a sales approach of physically sending gifts, but the content strategy of what James Kakis was just talking about with me is they don't have SDRs. They don't have a team at Testbox that is doing any of that. It's literally just him producing the content, which is then the pipeline, which blew my mind. I didn't realize that Testbox did not have a sales development team, and it feels like that's almost the future. And I'm curious if that's how you see, when you think about content strategy, is that what you're thinking about? Like, this is the future with founders, or is it?
I mean,
what is
I I think so. I got started in marketing. For folks who maybe don't know, I got started in marketing 5 or 6 years ago at B2B companies, and my whole thing was like content is your marketing. And if your content strategy isn't driving inbound, then it's broken. Like straight up, that's what it should be doing. So when you say like the future of it, I don't think the future, I wouldn't go so far as to say like zero SDRs or almost none. I think it's more of a shift of we need 20, 30, 50, 100, and we only have a couple marketers, to we only need a few SDRs and we have a few more marketers than before, but obviously AI, and we can go into that to make them
Yeah.
mightier marketers. But I love I'm an advisor for James. I'm helping him on the marketing side. And it's really cool to see that if his founder, and they do have a marketer helping put out more content, like that is bringing awareness to their category, to their company, credibility, and driving inbound without having to rely on like the kind of like ground and pound, like
Yeah.
just like hit the phone super hard, 100 emails a day mentality. And I've always respected James a lot because he does have that vision for what the future of go to market is, and he's living it too. He's not just talking it.
Yeah, and it feels like that is the future, right? It is finding that executive, whomever it might be, whether it's a founder or not, that has the audience to
Yeah.
capture the attention to drive the inbound, and then using the key accounts that you want to go after for physical shipments, or how do I stand out
Right.
what with these key accounts and having one or two SDRs. So uh I don't yeah, so that to me is the future of where we're going, and you could argue that we're already there. But uh
We're starting to get there. Me and you,
yeah,
it feels like it's there for me and you because we do this and we live that, we live that life. But I think it's like the tip of the iceberg, honestly. Like people are just starting to be like, oh, our CEO should be on LinkedIn, to, okay, how do we actually take those first steps? And so if you think of like what will a couple years look like, probably I say most, that could be literally 51%, like majority or near majority of executives will start to have, or companies will have an executive on. And then I think we'll start to scale that to the leadership team or a true employee advocacy program, and people
yeah,
that will have a very heavy social first marketing initiative that will start to be more prevalent. So like now you could probably list what 3 to 5 companies that come fairly quickly. I think
yeah,
in 2 to 3 years, it'll be like, oh, well, most of them are doing it. Like, you know what I mean? Most of them are, at least in the
yeah.
GTM space that me and you hang out in.
Yeah, and I'm curious your thoughts on where we're going with YouTube, because I've had some conversations, like early conversations with people about YouTube and Reddit, if that's not a bad word.
No, it's not a
But
bad
being
word. I
able to
think it's,
like, what is the
yeah,
strategy for how a BB SaaS company, like, do I take the founder? Like Ahrefs does a great job of this. They have someone on the team that is the person for the channel.
right.
But LinkedIn's step one. Then I hear rumblings of, all right, go from rented to owned, get them in the newsletter, figure out your podcast strategy. But what about YouTube and Reddit? And is that the future?
I think a flywheel is the future. And by that, I mean, you can do just like any company right now could just stand up executive LinkedIn, right? And it could just be like the solo
Yeah.
channel. It can do, and it can be very, very powerful. The next step, like, could YouTube be part of, like, call it the channel mix? Absolutely. I think that companies are starting to realize, just like their marketing teams are soloed, so is their channel strategy. And it's not enough to have an email marketing manager who does one thing, and then like a YouTube person who does one thing, and then, social media person who does one thing. You have to have that like content strategist or architect, if you want to be really fancy with it, who's saying, no, how does our whole content operation, how does that actually, one, impact the business? Like what specific KPIs are we going for that are beyond just the channel metrics? And then two, what are the channels that we're going to invest in? And three, how do they fuel each other? And then how do we get all those different signals, capture them, and kind of like, go back to the top of the wheel and spin it? So that's my like future of Andrew. And I
Okay.
think YouTube will be one of those newer things that will become like more popular in that flywheel.
Okay. Interesting. Because over the last couple of weeks, I've seen acceleration around that. You said the fancy term of architect, but the go-to-market architect, which is just another way of saying go-to-market strategy, I would think. And
It's a role in it, yeah. I think you
yeah,
could say an architect is a role within the strategy, and it's better than orchestration. I know orchestration's taking off a little bit, and I'm sorry, I'm not gonna. I don't like the idea of like someone doing like orchestrate,
yeah,
but architect always seemed kind of cool because like you're blueprinting it out and you're mapping it, and then
yeah.
you're getting players on your team to go run those plays. So I like that a little bit better.
I do too, and the engineer though. So where I was going with this is
I like
the
talking about
go-to-market.
less.
Stay with me for a second, because the go-to-market engineer role is tied to Clay. So Clay,
Mhm.
using Clay to then come up with what are
That's right.
the accounts and contacts and all the signal data. And so what I'm finding in my business is now it's not just about how do I help founder create their brand on LinkedIn and create the content for them, but now it's morphed into, all right, that's creating demand. How do I capture it? And now I'm in this world of go to market engineer, and I'm bringing someone on my team who's going to be responsible for building clay tables so we can build some outbound process to be able to weave that into the flywheel you were talking about earlier. So it's really interesting to me how clay has now become this thing, which is a good or bad word depending on who you ask, uh, of how to build your go to market outbound sales development function. So
I think that's really cool because if there's like if you think about the 95-5 rule, which is like 95% of the people in your TAM are not in market and 5% are, most marketing should be designed around the 95, obviously, right? That's the majority.
yeah,
So that's the group you could say, hey, we're doing demand creation for that group. And then for the 5% who are in market, we want to do the demand capture. I think, and this is a genuine like want to hear what you say, not a debate, is like I think kind of what you're saying too, if I'm picking it up right, is hey, let's put out this content, just use LinkedIn for this example, but it goes across channels, and let's get these engagement data, but it kind of like how do we capture that data to do outbound to move the 95 to the 5%? I
yeah,
feel like that's kind of the movement, right? And I don't, I guess, pun intended, movement of moving that group into in market. And that's why when people say, like, oh, should we have those two delineated thought processes? I think it's like one, two, and then the third is the action of moving them over, which I think is what you're talking about. Like, how can we get smart with the data, enable our outbound team to go hit the right people with the right message? And I say that in a way that's beyond what we used to say a couple of years ago.
yeah. And I would add that's the flywheel back, which is, all right, this posted well. Let's take that and apply it to what the sales development reps are saying
Right?
to the companies that engaged with it through an email sequence that
Yeah.
drives them back to the post,
Yeah.
without mentioning the fact that we know that you've seen this, right?
Right,
So
exactly. Yeah, that last part I think it's super important and also somewhat tempting, to kind of like reveal like, hey, hey, Andrew, I saw you liked
yeah,
this post by
you
Devin Reed.
clicked
It's
on
like
this
that's
thing. Yeah,
that's creepy.
yeah,
Just lead with the message of Devin's post because you already know that resonates, right? It's like, Andrew, you already knew I like sneakers and I guess my shoe size somehow and my, my color. It's like if you already know that, you don't have to be like, hey, Dev, I saw you like sneakers. Like, no, you just showed me. It's kind of the classic show don't tell.
yeah. Well, and let's wrap on this because I know I'm trying to keep these to 10 minutes. We're already over on time. But I've been asking every guest this last question, which is what's the number one belief about pipeline generation 2025 the market has completely wrong? And how should companies be thinking about doing it differently? And we've been talking about your point of view on that, but what do you think?
I mean, it's not new. This is not a new problem, but from what I'm seeing working with CMOs is they're still trying to get as many people as possible to their website. And they think that is the ultimate success is web traffic. Now, don't get me wrong. If you can increase your web traffic, by all means do that. But the real top of funnel metrics for me are the social first metrics like impressions and followers and engagement. It's also things like up to me on email. If you have like a newsletter, like are people opening, reading, and consuming? So to me, it's moving that mindset that to get that awareness and build that demand, it doesn't happen by just like spamming links and trying to get, constantly putting out links to your blog and links to your website. Just take the core message that you want the market to know and put that in all over those places where they're at, whether it's Reddit or a podcast or YouTube. I would rather have all those channel metrics go up with my company's face and, faces and messages out there and be more successful and have more reach and more impact versus trying to get everyone back to our website because no one wakes up and goes to like any company's blog to learn something. Like
Yeah, right.
it's you pick up the phone and you call your friend Andrew, or you go to ChatGPT and say what's the best XYZ, or you go to Reddit, like, or you go to YouTube to learn things. Like that's where we're going to consume information. So put your information there instead of like freaking out on web traffic and the decline that's happening across the board. I feel bad for HubSpot. People are giving HubSpot a
I
bad
know.
time because that graphic went out. I'm like, That's just one company. If you think that's not happening all over the place, you're crazy. It's just for some reason you decide, not me,
HubSpot
but
is
people
dead.
decided to punch up at HubSpot.
Well, on that, let's end on that, because don't punch up on HubSpot. Leave them alone.
I like HubSpot, and like good marketers work there. So it's like, why are we like, have you seen these posts that I'm referencing? Like,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
yeah, it's like, okay, calm down.
The stock price is the opposite, so I don't think they're correlated.
I have a feeling HubSpot knows what they're doing, and
Yeah.
and guess what? Those posts that were going around, HubSpot saw that data long before those things went viral. Like they already knew. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, sir, for being here. I appreciate you joining here and snacking on pipeline strategy. And until next time, we'll see you on the next episode. And everybody, if you need to find Devin, it's on LinkedIn. That's for sure. Yeah. All right. Thank you, sir.